With peace talks bogged down, nearly 3 million people displaced, and a crying need for humanitarian aid, Yemen is a story that needs to be told. When Houthi rebels from northern Yemen seized power last year, many of them attacked and intimidated critical journalists who, in their eyes, are agents of the enemy, the Saudi-supported former government and the Saudis themselves. The Houthis also took over much of the country's media infrastructure, including the state broadcaster Yemen TV. Meanwhile, another channel, also calling itself Yemen TV, the Saudi-approved version, is beaming the ousted government's side of the story into the country from its studios in Riyadh. It's no wonder that when Yemeni reporters go out into the field, they're often asked, whose side are you on? And when you put this question to Yemenis, what media outlets do they trust? And which version of Yemen TV do they believe? Many of them will tell you none of the above. The Listening Post's Will Young now on journalism caught in the crossfire in Yemen.
Two Yemeni journalists telling a story of one nation from two cities, from two very different perspectives. Divergent views on a conflict that's tearing Yemen apart.
يمدونهم بالمال والسلاح والرجال ليقتلوا إخوانهم.
هم الآن بيحسبوا إنه رسالة للعدو إن إحنا خلاص انحرنا.
Dalia Diel presents her show Mocha Coffee on the Sana'a-based Al Yemen-emblazoned satellite channel. Her program focuses on social issues, but a war is being waged on Sana'a from above, and politics is never far away.
The war is affecting everyone, and many things that affect the Yemeni people are obstacles for journalists too. Normally, I would go into the field to report on people's experiences and living conditions, but I cannot do this now because of the war. My show covers social stories, but it is our fate that we must now tackle political issues. I mean, we would be live on air while bombs were dropping. So tackling these things is a must. We are at the heart of events.
But in this conflict, not all Yemeni journalists are able to report on their country from their country. Jamil Ezzaldeen's political talk show airs on Yemen TV. Not the state broadcaster based in Sana'a. That channel was taken over by the Houthis when their forces stormed the capital nearly 2 years ago. Eldeen is now based in Riyadh, where he and other Yemeni journalists have received funding from the Saudi government. In facilities provided by the Saudi Education Ministry, a new Yemen TV broadcasts back to the homeland, a channel that mirrors and opposes its Houthi rival.
When the Houthis entered Sana'a, the first thing they did was attack our TV station. We survived 3 days of constant shelling. Their aim is to terrorize the media so that no one will dare to criticize, condemn, or say a word about the violence against journalists. It is almost impossible to communicate with the Houthis. They don't see us as journalists or even as human beings. There is no professional media to reflect people's struggles, opinions, or problems. Yemeni journalists are forced to work in secret. They could be arrested, jailed, put on trial, or blackmailed at any moment.
The Houthis' decade-long insurgency escalated last year when they ousted President Abd Rabbu Mansour al-Hadi, who sought refuge in Saudi Arabia. Since then, the Saudis have led an offensive that has pushed Yemen to the brink of humanitarian disaster. If conditions for the media were tough under President Hadi, they've taken a sharp turn for the worse during the current war. Hundreds of violations against journalists and media organizations have been recorded, including killings, kidnappings and torture. 10 journalists held in a Houthi prison since June last year began a hunger strike in May, protesting their arrest and maltreatment. Last August, during the height of the Saudi air war, Houthi captors held 2 journalists, Yusuf al-Izari and Abdullah Qabil, in a location coming under heavy Saudi bombardment. Their families say they were being used as human shields.
After the Houthis took control, journalistic freedom hit rock bottom. The minute you mention Al-Masdar online or any independent or undesirable media outlet, access is denied immediately. They use violence towards journalists who do not subscribe to their version of events. I personally managed to escape 2 kidnapping attempts by the Houthis. The second time, 9 of my colleagues were kidnapped. Since then, I have left Sana'a and moved to Mareb, to cover events from here.
We can't say that it is only the Houthis that restrict freedom in Yemen. In fact, there are violations of freedom and journalists' rights in general. The situation is not much better outside Sana'a, where if you're not with the opposition, you have no access to information either. Each side of the conflict classes journalists who follow the opposing side as enemies, spies, or even conspirators. But the Houthis are worse than the others because they are the ones that banned websites and arrested more journalists than the others. We blame them more because they are the ones in power.
Amid the scapegoating of journalists, the conflicting narratives, and the polarized and highly partisan press, Yemeni's trust in the media is dwindling. According to a study by a Yemeni think tank in April, 59% of Yemenis consider objective information to be non-existent, with more than a quarter trusting none of their local media sources. The independent news website Al-Masdar Online was ranked highest, but still, only 19% of Yemenis questioned said they trusted it.
The lack of trust stems from the immense amount of news and rising number of media outlets. Each side of the conflict starts its own media outlet, which means there are too many, to the point that readers can't trust them anymore. With the current complications and divisions, you can't create a balanced story with both sides. But still, you need to be professional about the way you cover events. Even if you don't have the whole picture, at least cover one side of the story with professionalism.
People watch everything. They watch the Saudi-based Yemen TV,
من مجوس الفرس الروافض المتمردين قوات الحوثي
as well as Houthi-affiliated Al-Masira. Why? So they can decide for themselves which is more credible. Naturally, a lot of people do not accept Yemen TV from Riyadh. Saudi money has bought off many people, and it is perfectly capable of buying media channels as well. Everyone knows that Yemen is facing a massive media onslaught from Saudi Arabia. We try to counteract this despite our modest resources.
بشكل أو بآخر.
We are grateful to Saudi Arabia for hosting us here and allowing legitimate Yemeni media outlets to broadcast into Yemen. This allows us to push back against the flood of media backed by Iran. We are not affected by any external influences. We are immune to that. We know how popular our channel is, from the reaction of the Houthis to our programs, and also through social media and the opinions of people in the streets. Yemeni society today is divided because of the Houthis.
Yemeni citizens are victims of the current events. We have a big problem in Yemen nowadays, a disaster. The media has become highly chaotic and manipulated by agendas. It is no longer a media that presents facts. A journalist looking for work will research the agenda of the institution he aims to work for and then write the same way. If you listen to Houthi media, you would think that they are triumphant in all areas. If you listen to the opposition, you would believe that they are winning every battle. We cannot get a clear picture of what's happening.
As two TV channels and a factional media fight for the right to represent Yemen, Yemen's story is being torn between two poles. Journalists caught in the middle are finding themselves under fire while a nation unravels.